Well, hello again. Now, I need to give a bit of a health warning here as we start this new series. Well, today, if you're about to take a flight, you might want to shut your ears. And I'll tell you why, because I started preparing it on Wednesday, and I'd written down what I was going to say, and I had a nightmare about being in a plane crash that night, a very vivid one. We were all right in the end, but everything happened, so, I'm kind of scared myself. So if you're about to take a flight, you might want to switch off at this point. But picture this. So don't listen, Hazel, okay? Right, which is usual. No, I'm only joking. No, she does listen to me. You're on a plane, and the captain says, we've got a problem with the oxygen supply. You're going to need to put your oxygen masks on. And then there's that scary sight. Boom, the oxygen masks come down. And that's pretty intense, isn't it? And the more challenging thing is that you've got a child that you're responsible for. Maybe it's your own child, maybe it's your grandchild, or maybe it's someone else's child that you're looking after, but they're your responsibility. Now, what do? You've got an oxygen mask you've got to put on. They've got one they put on. What do they tell you at the beginning? They tell you to put the child's on first. Hang on. No. That dream didn't do me much good, did it? Somehow Donald Trump got tied up in this dream as well that I had, but I don't know why that was. But right, I'll start again. What you tell me, what do they tell you to do? Just shows how much I listen to them when they do that announcement, isn't it, at the beginning? Yeah, you put your own on first. And why do they do that? Yeah, and what were you saying, Sue? You're able to deal with the child. Yeah, you've got to kind of look after yourself first so that you're fit enough to look after them, so that you've got the oxygen coming in and you can do it. And that makes sense, doesn't it? It didn't actually the first time I heard it, and I thought, they've got that wrong. Why are they telling me that? And someone explained to me the reason. But here's the thing. We know that it's important, actually. We've got to make sure we're all right so we can look after our children. But when it comes to everyday life, we often assume that putting others first means that we should ignore our own needs. Now, when I was a teenager, I was in a great youth group, but it was pretty intense, and actually a little bit extreme. It was two guys who were kind of really extreme. You know that if you're not a Jesus follower, you might not know this. You might have met extreme Christians, and they might have put you off. Well, these people would have put you off. When they prayed, it was like they were constipated. It was, No more details, but everything was really intense, and it was like considered a real virtue to wear yourself out. I remember they used to say something like, "We want to be spent in the work of the Lord." And I remember this guy, and he first got me into preaching. He said, "Lord, we want to die preaching," and I thought, "Oh, blow! Yeah, I always have died preaching once or twice, but that's in a kind of metaphorical way." And it was like really intense, and the idea was, it was bad to enjoy yourself. It was bad to take rest. You've got to be spent, and every minute you've got to be out there, and you've got to be preaching the gospel. And actually, even when you slept as well, they say, "You just sleep for the Lord. You just sleep for the Lord." And in fact, one of these guys, he had actually moderated a bit by then, but he said when he was at Bible college, he used to eat cheese before he went to bed so he could have more vivid spiritual dreams and visions and things, Well, actually, the poor guy got exhausted. He worked for a big Christian organisation. He was a great evangelist, but he just flopped out, actually. It was really sad. But it was pretty intense. And I hope I don't give you that impression to make you that intense. I know that Jesus said we've got to deny ourselves, but does that mean that we ignore what happens to us completely? Is it all about looking after everyone else and just forgetting about our own well-being? What if caring for yourself is essential? What if it's actually something that God wants for you? And listen, I've been there. There have been times in my life when that thinking from my old youth leaders has sunk in. You might sit there and think, well, I don't see that in the way that you work, It's always, every time I go on holiday, which you're about to go, someone says, again? Someone said that to me last night, actually, when I was out. You're always on holiday, Well, maybe I am, I don't know, but holidays are great. So don't begrudge me that, please. But, there have been times in my life when I've been driven. I'm not doing enough. I've got to do more outreach events. I've got to witness more. I've got to tell people more about Jesus. And it's almost like a legalistic thing. I've got to be available. I've got to be ready. And on the outside, I've looked like I've had everything together. But on the inside, I felt totally depleted and exhausted until I grind to a halt because I've got nothing else to give. And in those times, I think I'm doing what God's wanted. I've got those old youth leaders in my head. Be spent in the Lord's work, die preaching. But actually, I came to realize that God didn't create me to run on empty. He created me as a whole person, body, soul, and spirit. And that includes recognizing that I need to refuel and reset. So let's get back to that airplane scene. When the oxygen mask drops, we're supposed to put our own mask on, right? I mean, you corrected me, didn't you? Because I still had that old thinking there. It's just logic. You can't help anyone else if you're not breathing yourself. But how often do we miss that when we come to everyday life? I mean, think about your own life for a second. And maybe you're in that position now. You hit a wall of exhaustion where you're completely drained because you've been putting everyone first and you're looking after the children and you're looking after parents and you're looking after just about everyone. But in all of that, you're not really looking after yourself. Family, work, and all the daily demands wear us out. And it's like a badge of honor. I'm tired. Sometimes when you see other Christian leaders, and it's almost like a badge of honor. How are you? Busy, I'm tired. And there's like a virtue in being busy, And, I like to say, I'm really enjoying myself. In fact, one of the guys who follows me on Facebook, he said, do you spend all your time going to gigs? Not all of it, just most of it, Yeah, you even got mentioned this morning, didn't it? But sometimes we think, running on empty means we're doing something right. But does Jesus really want us to live that way? Well, Brian gave us that reading that said the opposite. Jesus said, I am gentle and humble in spirit, and you will find rest for your souls. The work that I ask you to accept is easy. The load I give you to carry is not heavy. Now, actually, in the context of that, you see, the religious leaders of that day were a bit like my old youth leaders. You had to do. And there was all the commands that God gave, but they added to them extra things, extra rules, extra regulations, extra prayers, extra things you did. And they just loaded people down, and Jesus said, no, I've got another way. He said, I've got an easy way. Just follow me, and live in God's love and live my way. It's totally different. Well, today we start a new series called Peace of Mind. And we're going to explore how to find calm in these chaotic times. And many of us carry hidden struggles with grief and anxiety. We come in and shake hands with everyone and we look like we've got it all together. And when someone asks us what we say, what was the usual thing? How are you, Femi? Yeah, good. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, that's what we say. I'm fine. Well, you're not fine. But say, yeah, fine. Yeah, everything's good. I'm fine. And we're not really. And many of us here, I'm sure there are people here who carry hidden struggles with anxiety and grief or burnout. And we feel stuck in a cycle of negative thinking or exhausted from fighting mental battles. Finding peace isn't about pushing ourselves harder. It's about learning to think differently. It's about learning to live differently. It's about reordering our lives and leading a more balanced one, where we take time to rest, pray, and connect with God and people. And that's what God designed us to do. Now, maybe you're not even sure what you believe about God. And that's okay. You're in the right place, so I'm glad you're here. Because whether you've got doubts, questions, or skepticism, or a mix of both, this is still for you. Because this morning, we're going to explore what it is to lead a balanced life and find true rest and truly care for ourselves so actually we're better used to the people around us. We're going to learn how to refuel and reset. And that's all about pausing to ensure that we're living in a way that supports our well-being, body, mind, and soul. And these pauses help us to reset and make sure that we're not just surviving, but thriving and finding the wholeness that God intends for us. So we're going to unpack this idea and see how we can change this so that we can handle the pressures of life. And we're going to do that by looking at the experience of a guy called Elijah. Now, apologies, if you're here every week. I think this is probably at least the third time I've spoken on this passage, but I promise you I haven't just dug up a load of old notes and just rehashed them. I think this is the go-to passage about self-care. And one of the things I love about the Bible is we see people warts and all. We see them in their weakness. And we meet this guy in Elijah at a moment of incredible weakness. Now, Elijah was God's spokesperson, a prophet. He was chosen by God to deliver his message. And actually he was a pretty amazing guy because everyone else had turned their backs on God. In fact, everyone else was worshipping this lump of wood that they called a god, and they were doing all sorts of horrible things in the name of this new religion. And they were under the spell of the queen she'd actually married the Hebrew king, Queen Jezebel. You see films, with the title Jezebel, and she really was a Jezebel, nasty piece of work. And he's had to face off hundreds of people who were steering everyone in the wrong direction by worshipping that false god, that lump of wood that was called Baal. And not only was it about people actually giving their hearts to a lump of wood, but actually it was about living a lifestyle that was offensive to God and offensive to people. And Elijah has a real face down with him. It's real high noon there. He calls down fire from the sky, and it comes like an epic, undeniable fire. It's like a blockbuster film. And he was fearless and bold. He was an absolute hero in the moment. And then right after that huge win, Elijah crashes. Word reaches Queen Jezebel of what he's done, and she is furious. Now, as I said, she wasn't any old queen. She was a ruthless woman. She was powerful. She was known for her fierce control and her commitment to eliminating anyone who stood in her way. She was dangerous, and she wasn't used to losing. So she sends a message to Elijah that's as clear as it's terrifying. By this time tomorrow, you will be as dead as one of those prophets. Imagine getting that delivered in your email box. Not a very nice thing to get, is it? Well, Elijah's suddenly hit with a wave of fear. And this is quite a change. One moment he's on a high, feeling victorious and unstoppable. And the next minute he comes crashing down. Put simply, he is terrified, witless. Panic hits, adrenaline kicks in, he bolts, his heart is pounding, he's running like everything's on the line. And he puts 80 miles between Jezebel and himself and hits a place called Beersheba. And Beersheba is the most southerly place in the country. It's rather like, you're running from someone in Hucknall and you go right to the most southerly part of the Isle of Wight, about as southerly as you could go in the UK. And he leaves his servant and everyone else behind and isolates himself completely. In the desert, on his own, he's burnt out, scared, feeling like he's got nothing left. He's gone from being on the top of the world to rock bottom. And it's right here, where he's at his lowest, that God shows up for him and shows him he needs to actually recalibrate his life and rethink the way he does things. So out there in the wilderness, in the desert, Elijah finally collapses under a scrappy bush, utterly broken. He is done. He is finished. Fear and exhaustion overwhelm him. He feels completely alone, like all his efforts have been in vain. And the weight of it all finally crushes him. And with nothing left to give, he talks to God. And maybe you've said something like this yourself. I've had enough, Lord. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors. I've had it, Lord. Just take me. Take me to heaven now. I want to go now. This is a guy who called fire down from heaven. Now he's begging God to end it all. The confidence, the courage, that faith that once burned in him, it's all gone. Feeling completely drained, like the power that once sustained him had evaporated. So how does God respond to this? Does he tell him to man up or pray harder? And actually, that's what my old youth leaders would have done. Just pray more, pray more, pray more. No. God meets Elijah in his desperation. And the first thing he does is he sends a messenger, an angel, to bring something. But not the usual thing an angel brings. Angels usually bring kind of messages from God. But he doesn't give him a lecture or a rebuke. He brings him food and water. And the angel gently wakes Elijah up and says, get up and eat. You know, and I'm sure the tone was really gentle there. You know, it's not like in the morning. You know, we say, morning, yeah, up we go, breakfast time. No, this is, come on, Elijah, get up and eat. Elijah looks around and sees a loaf of hot bread baking on coals, the warmth radiating towards him, the comforting aroma filling the air. You know, when bread's being made, oh, it smells wonderful, doesn't it? And a jar of cool, refreshing water beside it. And remember, he's in the desert, how welcome that would be. Maybe there was kind of ice, maybe there was a bit of Coke in it, I don't know, probably not. You know, but it was just so refreshing. And God doesn't just give Elijah the bread and the water, he gives him a whole experience. Think about it. Imagine that you're there, the fire crackling, the fresh smell of bread, the simple but profound comfort of it all. And Elijah takes it, he eats and drinks, and then what does he do? He zonks back out again. Now, he must have been utterly spent. Every bit of strength, mental and physical, depleted. But God knows what Elijah needs. And I presume this is a little while later. I presume he lets him have some more sleep. But the angel comes back a second time later on, gently nudging Elijah and saying, get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. God sees Elijah, drained of every ounce of strength, running on empty in body, heart, and spirit. And he doesn't just offer help. He provides exactly what Elijah needs to keep going. Not a challenge to rise up, not a speech to fire him up, but nourishment to build him up and rest to restore him. And this sparks an incredible transformation. Elijah gets up, finds the strength to move on, and keeps going for 40 days all the way to Mount Sinai. I presume that he stopped at night time, 40 days and 40 nights, but that's quite a distance. And Mount Sinai is really significant for his people. You know, I think maybe this was his choice to go there. You know, it's like when you go back to somewhere special, you know. If you don't know me, there's somewhere really special to me. The people are here. Where's the special place? Southend, yeah, you know. And actually, I love to go back to Southend. It is the centre of the universe. But also, you know, I love to come back. I remember walking down the road in the church that I first became a Christian and thinking, oh, yeah, thank you, Lord. That's where I became a Christian. It's not the place that's special. It's the memories and it's all the associations. And actually, Sinai was really important because in the kind of collective memory of God's people, Sinai was the place where Moses met with God. And actually, God gave him the guidelines for living, the commandments, the way he wanted them to live. And it's a long, grueling journey, but it's given Elijah space, letting him process, recover, connect. Sometimes we just need to get away and take a journey and pray as we go on. I'd love to hear what he said to God on the way. I'd love to know what he was thinking. But finally, he reaches that mountain, finds a cave and rests for the night. And after he's rested, the Lord spoke his word to him. Elijah, why are you here? And that question is all it takes. It's a cue for Elijah to pour out his heart, to spill out every fear, every frustration, and every ounce of pain he's been carrying. Elijah answered, Lord, if God of heaven's armies, I've always served you the best I could. But the people of Israel have broken your agreement with you. They've destroyed your altars. They've killed your prophets with swords. I am the only prophet left, and now they're trying to kill me too. God, it's all going wrong. And you know I'm the only one left, and now I'm about to be mincemeat, and that's it. It's done. It's finished, God. This is raw, it's honest, and it's necessary because Elijah's completely vulnerable, laying out everything that weighs on him. Pouring it out to God, and God can't be shocked. God knows these things. We can pour out our hearts to God. The lowliness, the fear, the feeling that all his work has been for nothing. But God doesn't respond with an answer, or he doesn't give him a solution. Instead, he listens. God gives Elijah the space to be real, to release what's bottled up inside of him. He doesn't have to put on an act. You know, we all put on our acts to people. We don't need to put them on to God. Sometimes what we need the most isn't a solution, but a safe space to be heard. There's no safer space than talking to God. Then God gives Elijah an offer he can't refuse. The Lord said to Elijah, "Go, stand in front of me on top of the mountain. I will pass by you." That's exactly what he said to Moses in that same place. Wow, amazing. God's the same. The same God who met with Moses is meeting with him. And suddenly all the elements break loose. First, there's a massive windstorm, so strong it tears the mountains apart, breaking the rocks into pieces. But God isn't in the wind. Then there's an earthquake that shakes the ground, everything trembling and crackling. But God isn't in the earthquake either. Then there's a fire that blazes across the mountain, roaring with intensity, but God isn't in the fire. And the interesting thing is, all these three things actually were things that Moses experienced. Moses, another great leader all those years ago, his ancestor who met with God. Moses experienced that. But we're told here God's not in any of those things. But then comes a gentle whisper, a soft, profound stillness that fills the air. And in the original language, the Hebrew, it's tricky to translate. It's something like a hush bursting with eternity. The writer is trying to describe the indescribable. This is God. This is God in the silence that's so meaning. And in this quiet and almost fragile moment that Elijah senses God's presence, he covers his face overwhelmed. He steps out of the cave and God speaks to him. Not in the chaos, not in the power, but in the quiet. "Why are you here, Elijah?" Again, Elijah pours out his heart to God. Again, he does it. He tells God of his fears, his frustrations, his exhaustion. You can do it as much as you want. He's honest, he's raw, he's vulnerable. And again, God listens. He doesn't correct Elijah. He doesn't dismiss his fears. But he gives him a fresh mission and reassures him he's not alone. After listening to all of that, God tells him actually it's not quite as bad as he thinks he is. There's a hidden community of faithful people. 7,000 people who are still faithful to God, who are still with Elijah. He reminds him that he's still with him, that he hasn't left him, and that he still has a purpose for Elijah. And this whole experience of this man shows us something profound. God isn't just interested in what we can do for him. He's interested in who we are. He's interested in our well-being, our body, soul, and spirit. Body, mind, and soul. God showed practical care for Elijah when he couldn't care for himself. God offered rest instead of pressure, nourishment instead of demands, presence instead of distance. God was invested in who he wanted Elijah to become, not what he wanted him to do. A whole restored person. He wanted Elijah to refuel and reset. That's a wonderful story, but it's not just something that happened to someone long ago. This can help you and I. Maybe you're in that place of exhaustion, constantly giving and feeling like there's nothing left to give. And maybe in the past, people have been saying to you, it's selfish to care for your own needs, and that's got into your thinking. Looking after yourself isn't selfish. It's part of what God wants for you. He created you as a whole being, body, soul, mind, and spirit. He cares about every part of you. And God's desire for you isn't that you serve from a place of emptiness, but from wholeness, and actually that you enjoy what you do. Yeah, that's one of the things I've learned actually is the gifts that God gives us are the ones that we enjoy. I don't enjoy administration, and actually people who are receive my administration don't enjoy it either. Do you know why? It's not my gift. I know I hide behind that a bit. But do you know, I tell you what I really enjoy. I really enjoy speaking to you. I really enjoy preparing. It doesn't particularly tire me out. I love doing it because that's what God's gifted me to do. God's desire for you is to be whole. And actually, that takes a bit of forward planning. So as we wrap up, I want to help you refuel, rest, and find strength. Now, whether you're a Jesus follower or you're not sure about faith, these steps are for you. They're more than just practical. They're an invitation to something deeper. And if you're not a Jesus follower, just stick with us because actually this is all about living the Jesus way. This is all about living how we're designed to live. So I want to give you a little well-being plan. And I've adapted this actually from I have to give my sources here, a lady called Dr. Debbie Hawker, who I've known for 10 years or so, a Christian psychologist who's worked a lot with people who've been overseas and in very stressful situations and has worked this kind of plan, this well-being plan. So I've kind of adapted it a bit, but I do want to name my source there, and I recommend her book, Resilience in Faith and Life. So what is this plan? Well, firstly, take time to recharge. I mean, life can feel relentless. And in times of stress, we need to step away, recharge, and embrace stillness. Remember Elijah in the wilderness? He found a place to pause, escape the chaos, breathe. And you need that too. Find a space where you can reconnect with what truly matters. You know, whether it's a walk in nature or a quiet corner at home or even a few moments to catch your breath. It might only be a small thing. You might not be able to do much. It's like, you don't know, my children, they're awake about 5 a.m. and they don't go to sleep till 10 at night. But just try and find those moments. You lock yourself in the toilet, just say, Mummy's got to do I won't go into detail. Yeah, but I remember being in America once and this lady saying, I love the way she said to her daughter, I'm going to go and have some mummy time now. And I thought, that's really great. Yeah, mummy time. I love the way she said that. And the children went, yeah. I think they were glad to get rid of her. But anyway, But we need those. They are sacred pauses. They're vital for finding your balance and hearing what's truly important. The world is noisy, and from the minute we wake up, we're bombarded by noise. And I mean, I've just bought some nice kind of those in-ear things, and we can just be listening to music. And I listen to great music, by the way. Don't listen to Ben Marshall. My music's the best. But we listen to music, and we're bombarded all day. Sometimes we just need to take all of this out and just enjoy God's creation. And when you go for a walk, just listen to the birds sing, or just look at what's around you and look at the colours changing. It's a wonderful experience. It's part of what God created us for, to enjoy these things. There's clarity that comes when peace is found. And in those moments of quiet, you'll often find God's direction. Yeah, even if you're not a Jesus follower, you'll find those are times when you'll start connecting with God. And you'll start piecing things together. You'll start hearing God's voice whispering in your heart. And then get your sleep. So it's okay if you fall asleep during my talks. I quite understand, I remember once I was preaching somewhere, and this guy, I'll call him Fred, and I quoted him. He prayed, and I quoted him. I said, as Fred said, and he was sound asleep, and he heard his name, went, blah, 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 Sleep isn't optional, it's essential. It's a reset button for your body and mind. God created us to have sleep. So value your sleep. It's God's gift. It restores us. There was this guy, and he was another one of these really intense Christians, and he wanted to reclaim the night hours. And so he decided that one night a week he would have no sleep. So, he'd sleep for 6 nights, and then one night he'd work right through the night. Do you know what happened to him? He had a nervous breakdown. God hasn't created us to do that. Now, maybe actually, I know some of you might struggle to sleep, and that is a problem. We do have problems with that. And sometimes, I find, I'm out like a light, but I wake up about 3:30 in the morning. Apparently, experts say that's the time when things start to change and our body starts telling us we're getting near to waking up time. I know I used to get up about 3:30 or 4 o'clock, and pray and reclaim this time. And then I kind of zonked myself out. And actually, it was Debbie Hawker, that Christian psychologist. She said, Simon, you're not designed for that. Go and get some sleep. Get back to sleep. And you might need a few strategies. I'll just share a few things that I've learned. One of them, I don't know if it works quite so well with me because I'm not that numerate, but apparently psychologists say it really works. But you count back from 4,000 in threes, and it kind of slows your brain down. But it doesn't with me, actually, because I sort of start counting back and I get it wrong, and I start getting worried and thinking, hang on, where has that gone wrong? But it does work for some people. So if you're numerate, that might work for you. I'll tell you something I do sometimes, because I wake up and my mind's buzzing through with things about church. I don't go to sleep thinking about it, but it just gets back in my mind and think, blah, 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 blah. If it's something important I need to remember, I'll get out of bed and put a light on somewhere else and write it down, and that's there. It's written down. But another thing I do is I listen to a podcast, just 15 minutes, something really boring, unwork related, So, like the rest is politics. There's something about Rory Stewart's voice that sends me to sleep. It's lovely, I just listen to 15 minutes of Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell rattling on, and that's it. It just kind of think, I've got to sleep to get out of this, and I'll switch it off, and just something like that. I find that really helpful. Or maybe a bit of music. Anyone come across Lo-fi? You can see it on YouTube as well, but you can get it on. It's great, Lo-fi. It's all kind of relaxing music to chill out, anything like that. Don't listen to Squid. That's one of my favourite bands, but you won't sleep well with Squid because it's quite aggressive. Or just simply breathing. I saw on a podcast, actually, if you breathe in for a certain amount of seconds, hold your breath for a certain amount, and then breathe out. It kind of slows your heart rate down. You need to look that up. I'm not an expert. And also, there's a guy on YouTube called Dr. Sleep, or the Sleep Doctor. It's not a Christian, but it's common sense, really helpful stuff. But we need to protect our sleep. And if you're struggling with sleep, get some help, and talk it through and find some strategies. And then, I'm not going forward here. Enjoy your food. It's stuck, but anyway, it's there. Enjoy your food. Food isn't about what we need to carry on to live. It's about savouring life. It's about embracing what makes us human. I know sometimes, we can overeat, but actually when we eat in the right way, the right foods, it's really enjoyable. That's why we gather around tables and share meals. Food connects us. It brings us joy. It whispers God's goodness to us. So eat well. Eat healthily. If you want any advice, talk to Michelle. She's my diet guru. She's great. She'll give you great advice. I even have to come to confessional today. I had mayonnaise on something yesterday. I said, I've got to confess I've had mayonnaise. But she's forgiven me, so it's all right. But eat well. But enjoy it. That's what I found. I'm a bit of a diet boy now. I'm on a weight loss journey. Lost a stone? Yeah. But you know what I found, actually? I've enjoyed food more because actually I thought, this is nice. I'll try and I've explored different kind of food. But let it be that moment of joy and connection. It's interesting, Elijah didn't just get given the bread, but he had the experience, the warmth of the fire, the smell of the bread. Savour each bite. Let the textures and flavours fill you with gratitude. Let them remind you that it's all part of God's goodness. And then find connection. Now, connection with God. And if you're not a Jesus follower, that can be your first step. Just speak out to God. He's there to listen to you. And if you are, you can talk to God. You can pour out your heart just like Elijah. And with people. Human connection is powerful. Just as the angel touched Elijah, gentle and physical contact, a hug, a hand on the shoulder, just someone being physically near to you gives you comfort and strength. And sometimes we just need someone to share things with, or just to sit with. You might not even know what to say, but just to be with them. And then, I know this sounds a bit unchristian. Have some fun, And actually, if you're not a Jesus follower and you've come here in trepidation thinking, what a load of miseries. Actually, Jesus didn't want us to be miseries. Jesus wants us to have fun. Yeah, the Christian life is costly. It can be hard, but God wants us to have fun. Sometimes there's just things that you need to do that are just totally unrelated to, your normal duties in life or the things you do in the church that just take you out of yourself. So I know a lot of people like that adult colouring. I like to do that. I find that really helpful. But I'm really into music. I know not everyone likes my music. I can't understand why. But see, yesterday morning, I came to the thing here in the morning, and I was really tired. And there was an all-dayer music thing on, and I was kind of toying up, should I go? I'm just going to wear myself out, and I'm preaching the next day. And I thought, well, I'll go just for, in fact, I tried to sell my ticket, and and they said, have you sold your ticket? I said, no, not yet. No, but I didn't in the end. And I went to it, and I thought, I'll just go for a few hours, and it was brilliant. It was at the old Cold Store. It was like, it's a 2-day thing, but I'm not going today. Great bands like Swell Maps. Heard of them? No? Swell Maps. Foyer Red. No. I don't have any of these. Oh, great bands. But I went there and it was great. I connected up with friends. And I was on my feet more or less all the time from 1 p.m, and I was supposed to leave about 5, but I left at 11 p.m, right? So, yeah, it was, but do you know what? I felt kind of rejuvenated. Someone said, do you know, you look different to when you came, but it just took me right out of myself, connected with people. We all got a common love of music. And also, we were persecuted people, you know, because certain people take the mickey out of me for my taste in music, you know, because I'm sophisticated in my taste and not... But have some fun. It's all right to have some fun. And if you're not a Jesus follower and you think, I'm just going to be miserable, you're not. You know, being a Christian's about having fun. The best kind of fun that doesn't cost you, that doesn't actually get you in the wrong direction and wreck your life. So that's the plan. Each one of those steps is about restoration. Each one is an invitation to care for yourself. So start taking, just take one of those steps today. So as we wrap up, I want to encourage you to take time and live a balanced life, to refuel and reset. And as you go into this week, find moments to pause, recharge and rest, even if it's just moments. Allow God to meet you in the stillness. And if you're not a Jesus follower, make that your first step and say, well, here I am, God, and I've got a moment, I want to meet with you. Remember, you're designed for balance, not burnout. So as we move into a time of worship to finish with, I invite each of you to reflect on whether you might be running on empty. Maybe you've been carrying the weight of everyone else's needs and you feel drained. You're going through the motions, never pausing to let God restore you. Well, this is your moment to pause, to let go, to ask God to give you the strength to care for yourself as He cares for you. Let's pray. God, we come before you, some of us weary, some of us longing for balance and peace, some of us longing for sanity in our lives. And we know you meet us right where we are, in our exhaustion, in our striving. Today we ask for your presence in our pauses, that we could find rest and strength in you. Help us to let go of guilt, to recognize that caring for ourselves is part of your plan, so that we can serve others and you from a place of fullness. Restore us, God, and fill us with your peace so that we may truly live in balance and walk in your purposes. Help us to refuel and reset. In Jesus' name, amen.